Chapter 1: The Attack. The forest never felt welcoming, not tonight. The wind sliced through the trees like a sharpened blade, carrying a chill that reached her bones. Amara had ignored every instinct telling her to turn back, to avoid these woods after sunset. She had been reckless, chasing a rumor about missing travelers, a curiosity that could cost her everything. The first growl came without warning, low and menacing, vibrating through the soil beneath her boots. She froze, breath catching in her throat, listening as the sound circled her. Shadows moved between the trunks, impossible shapes that weren't human but were far from ordinary wolves. Her heart thumped in panic. "You shouldn't be here," a voice growled from the darkness, deep and commanding, yet threaded with menace. Amara spun, trying to locate the source. Two glowing amber eyes appeared, unblinking. She took a step back and tripped over a hidden root. Pain shot up her ankle as she scrambled to rise. But before she could, the first wolf leaped. Its fangs glinted in the pale moonlight, and she screamed. She wasn't ready for what happened next. A massive figure landed between her and the attacker, so fast she barely saw him. A man, but not just a man. His presence radiated danger, dominance, something primal. His eyes were the same amber as the wolves, burning with an intensity that made her instinctively step back. "Alpha." He moved with terrifying precision. A flash of claws and fangs, a roar that was more human than beast, and the attacking wolves collapsed, snarling, then retreating into the night. Amara's mind struggled to process it. He had saved her. But the intensity in his gaze was suffocating. "You're reckless," he said, voice low, carrying authority that made her stomach twist. "And you don't belong here." I didn't mean to." Her words faltered. "I was just human," he interrupted, cutting her off with a single word that felt like a verdict. She noticed for the first time the blood on her hands and legs, and the scratches forming across her skin. Pain surged, but so did something else, a twisted relief that she was alive. Who are you?" she whispered. "I am what you fear," he said simply, his eyes narrowing. "And what you need." Something in her flinched at the words, though she couldn't tell if it was terror, confusion, or something darker. "You saved me," she said, still trembling. "Why?" His jaw tightened, and a faint smile tugged at his lips, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Because I want something in return." Her stomach dropped. The casual threat in his tone made her feel as though every nerve in her body had been stripped bare. What do you want?" His gaze pinned her to the spot, a dangerous promise lingering in the amber depths. "Your heart." Amara's breath hitched, a cold shiver crawling up her spine. Not metaphorically. He didn't mean her heart in a gentle, poetic sense. He meant it. The look in his eyes confirmed it. Her life, her loyalty, her very essence. He would take it if she didn't surrender willingly. I don't understand," she stammered, fear and fascination tangling in her chest. "You will," he said, voice low, almost reverent, yet unyielding. "By dawn, you'll know exactly what it means to belong to me." Before she could protest, he moved like a shadow, wrapping her in an arm that was impossibly strong, pulling her close to his chest. She felt the heat of his body, smelled the faintly metallic tang of blood and wildness. Her pulse raced, not entirely from fear. And in that moment, she realized there was no escape. The forest had become a cage, the shadows alive with unseen eyes. The Alpha had chosen her. And from the way he looked at her, she was already his. Chapter 2: The Alpha's Demand. Amara awoke to the scent of damp earth and the faint tang of blood. Her head throbbed, and her body ached as though every bone had been rearranged overnight. Panic rose like a tide, and she scrambled to sit up, only to realize she wasn't in the forest anymore. The walls around her were rough-hewn wood, faintly carved with symbols she didn't recognize. She was in a cabin or a den. The light streaming through a small window painted the room in silver and shadow, and for a moment she thought she might still be dreaming. Then she felt it, the presence. He was there before she even saw him. "Alpha," standing in the doorway, tall, broad. His eyes amber like molten gold, and burning with an intensity that made her pulse spike. He leaned casually against the doorframe, one arm crossed over his chest, the other hand brushing a stray lock of dark hair from his forehead. Every movement spoke of control, power, and danger. "You're awake," he said, voice low, smooth, dangerous. "Good. I was beginning to think you'd prefer to die in that forest." I'm alive because of you," Amara said, voice barely a whisper. Relief and fear tangled in her chest. He stepped closer, the floorboards creaking under his weight, and Amara's eyes widened. There was no warmth in his smile. "Alive, yes. But that does not mean free." She blinked, confusion and dread tightening her throat. "Free." He circled her like a predator assessing prey, eyes lingering on her trembling form. "You owe me." The words made her stomach drop. "Owe you? Don't. I didn't agree to anything." "You survived because of me," he said, voice sharp as broken glass. "Because I chose to intervene. You don't get to pick and choose. You belong to me now." "No." Amara's voice cracked, but he didn't flinch. He didn't raise a hand, didn't threaten with claws or teeth. His dominance alone was enough to make her feel pinned. "You will learn to obey," he said softly, almost tenderly, though every syllable dripped with command. "You will give me your heart, figuratively, and perhaps eventually literally." Amara froze. Her heart raced. Literal, figurative. The line between life, loyalty, and love blurred. She had survived wolves, hunger, and the forest itself, but now the most terrifying predator was standing right in front of her, demanding her allegiance, her devotion, her very being. "You're insane," she whispered, though a part of her, the part that hated her own fear, felt something dangerous stir. He crouched slightly, bringing his face closer, close enough that she could see every golden fleck in his eyes. "Insane, perhaps. But survival doesn't care for sanity, Amara. And neither does desire." He straightened, and with a swift motion, he placed a hand over her heart. His touch was warm, commanding, and utterly overwhelming. "This is what I want," he murmured. "This heart. Your loyalty. Your obedience. And eventually—" His amber eyes darkened to molten fire. "Everything you are." Amara's chest tightened. Her survival instincts screamed to run, yet every fiber of her body hummed with something foreign, a mixture of fear, fascination, and an emotion she didn't dare name. "You think you can escape?" he asked, voice low, knowing. "You think your legs will outrun me? I won't let you." Her protest was cut short by the sudden flash of his power. In an instant, the world seemed to constrict, her body heavy with his presence. She fell to her knees, not from magic, but from the raw, undeniable dominance that pressed down on her. "You will stay," he commanded, his voice a low growl that vibrated in her bones. "And you will learn to give me what I want. Or you will regret crossing me." Tears stung her eyes, not from pain, but from the suffocating intensity of it all. Survival had brought her here, but survival would not save her now. "And yet," he added, his voice softening slightly, a tantalizing edge of warmth cutting through the threat, "if you give yourself willingly, perhaps you will find something more than mere life. Perhaps you will find power. Perhaps you will find freedom in a way your human heart cannot yet imagine." Amara's mind spun. Freedom, power, obedience, love. Each word tangled into a web that made her dizzy and terrified. She didn't trust him. He should not. And yet, she wanted to. Before she could respond, he turned sharply and left the cabin, the sound of his footsteps heavy, final, leaving her alone with her thoughts, her fear, and the undeniable pull of something she had never felt before. Alone, Amara whispered to the empty room. "I don't belong to anyone." But she already did. Chapter 3: Life Among Wolves. Amara had expected captivity to be a cage of wood and stone, but the reality was far more terrifying. The Alpha's territory stretched endlessly, a wild kingdom ruled by tooth, claw, and dominance. Wolves, both human and animal, prowled the boundaries. Each movement, each growl carried a warning: transgress and pay the price. Her first encounter with the pack was a brutal lesson. She was brought to the main hall, a cavernous structure carved from living wood and stone, where the full Alpha's council waited. The eyes of dozens of wolves, some fully human, some shifting, tracked her as she entered. Fear clawed at her chest. She felt like prey under a predator's scrutiny. "Step forward," the Alpha commanded, his voice echoing in the hall. Amara's legs shook, but she obeyed, walking slowly toward him. Every eye followed her, and whispers filled the room, low growls of assessment. "Human," one of the council members hissed, amber eyes narrow. "Why are you here? This is not your place." "She is mine," the Alpha said simply, his gaze boring into hers, silencing dissent instantly. The word mine was more than possessive. It was law, claim, and warning all at once. Amara's stomach turned. She had survived wolves, storms, and the forest itself, but now she was being claimed, and the consequences of resistance were unthinkable. "Your laws, they're harsh," she said, voice trembling. "They are survival," the Alpha replied. "And you will learn them. Quickly." The first test came that very night. She was ordered to accompany a patrol outside the den, to witness a skirmish between rival packs. Humans would have called it a massacre. Amara called it a nightmare. Wolves clashed in the moonlight, teeth flashing, claws tearing, bodies falling. The Alpha fought like a god among beasts, commanding his pack with effortless brutality. Amara's instinct screamed for her to flee, but her legs refused. Her heart raced, a mixture of terror and something she didn't understand. Fascination, perhaps even awe. The Alpha noticed, of course. His gaze met hers across the chaos, sharp and assessing. "You're learning," he murmured, voice barely audible over the battle, and for a moment, the air between them shifted. There was a pull, a tension that made her pulse spike. It was not tenderness, but it was not cruelty either. It was something she could not name. After the fight, she was taken to the training grounds. Here, the Alpha's methods were merciless. She was made to run, to endure pain, to test limits she didn't know she had. Each failure was met with his glare, each success with a quiet acknowledgement that made her chest ache. "Good," he said once, after she collapsed from exhaustion. "But you can do more. You must do more. If you want to survive. If you want to belong. You cannot falter." Belonging. The word hit her like a blow. She had fled her own world for adventure, for curiosity. And now she realized the price of survival was much higher. She would have to surrender. To him, to the pack, to a life she had never imagined. And then came the first night she saw him in his wolf form. Massive, terrifying, yet beautiful in a way that made her pulse catch. He moved with power, grace, and a dominance she could not deny. When their eyes met, wolf and human, predator and prey, Amara felt something in her shift, an instinct she had never felt. Desire, fear, loyalty, confusion. "You are learning," he whispered later, once human again, close enough that she could feel his breath on her skin. "And soon your heart will follow." Amara pulled away, shivering, though it wasn't just the cold. "My heart isn't yours," she said, voice barely above a whisper. He smiled, that dark, dangerous smile that both terrified and captivated her. "You'll learn," he said. "Because some things cannot be fought. Some things are fated. And some are taken." That night, as she lay alone in her quarters, listening to the howls of the pack echoing through the valley, Amara realized just how far she had fallen from the human world she had known. And yet, she couldn't stop thinking of him. Alpha. The one who had saved her life. The one who now demanded her heart. Chapter 4. Forbidden Secrets. The pack lived by strict rules. Obey the Alpha, never question the hierarchy, and never trespass into places forbidden. But Amara was human, and curiosity had always been her curse. That, she realized, was why she ended up in the forest in the first place. And it was why she now found herself wandering toward the northern caves, the ones she'd been warned never to approach. The night was heavy with mist. Every step she took crunched against gravel, echoing louder than it should have. She knew the Alpha's patrols prowled these borders, but something deeper pulled her here, something instinctual, like her heart was being dragged toward the truth. The cave mouth yawned open like a scar in the earth, and the air grew colder as she stepped inside. Symbols marked the walls, etched deep into the stone, older than the pack, older than human memory. Amara traced them with her fingertips, the grooves rough and sharp. The shapes were unmistakably runic, and though she didn't understand their full meaning, one symbol chilled her to the bone, a heart pierced by a claw. "You shouldn't be here." The voice came from behind, and she spun, heart leaping into her throat. The Alpha stood in the shadows, his presence overwhelming the cave as though he had grown from the stone itself. His amber eyes glowed faintly, catching the firelight from a nearby torch. Amara swallowed. What is this place? His expression hardened. A grave. A warning. A memory my pack does not speak of. She glanced at the carvings again. Why the heart? Why that symbol? The Alpha stepped closer, and the air thickened. Because once, he said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of history and blood, a human gave her heart to a wolf, not as a metaphor, as truth. And it cursed us all. Amara froze. What do you mean, cursed? The bond between human and wolf was never meant to be, he growled. She gave him everything, her life, her blood, her love. And he lost control. His hunger destroyed villages, packs, even his own kin. It nearly ended us. She stared at him, breath quickening. And you, why are you telling me this? Because history has a way of repeating, he said darkly. His gaze pierced her, heavy with meaning. And I see the same danger in you. Amara's throat tightened. The implication was unbearable. You think I'll destroy your pack? I think you'll destroy me, he admitted, voice raw, vulnerable for the first time. But the way he said it wasn't a plea. It was a challenge. Her chest constricted. She should have denied it, should have fled. But the truth was she couldn't look away. Something dangerous burned between them, an echo of the story carved in stone. Then, with a swiftness that made her gasp, he pressed her against the cave wall. His hand braced beside her head. His eyes locked onto hers. Not touching in cruelty, but in warning. You asked me why I saved you, he said, his breath hot against her cheek. It wasn't pity. It wasn't chance. It was because I felt it, the pull, the curse. I want your heart, Amara. And that is dangerous because if I take it, I may never let it go. And if I don't, his voice broke into a growl, it may destroy us both. Amara's body trembled, every nerve alight with terror and longing. She should have been repulsed by his confession, by the weight of his obsession. Yet her traitorous heart pounded, whispering something she wasn't ready to admit. You want me to be afraid of you, she whispered. His lips curved in a dark, almost broken smile. No, little human. I want you to be afraid of yourself. The cave fell silent, the only sound her racing heartbeat, echoing too loud in the dark. For the first time, Amara understood that her survival was no longer the issue. This was about something bigger. Forbidden bond. A secret that could unravel an entire pack. And the worst part was, she wasn't sure she wanted to stop it. Chapter 5: The Bond Forms. The days after the cave revelation were a blur of tension. Amara couldn't stop seeing the Alpha's eyes in the darkness, couldn't stop hearing his words. I want your heart. It wasn't simply a claim. It was a sentence. Every time she looked at him, she felt both trapped and drawn in, like a moth circling fire. But fate didn't allow her time to untangle her feelings. It was just before dawn when the alarm rose through the valley. A horn's low cry echoed across the mountains, followed by howls that vibrated through the earth. Rival wolves were approaching. Amara was pulled from her quarters by two guards who barely glanced at her. Stay with the Alpha, one growled, shoving her forward. If you want to live. The Alpha met her outside. His form shadowed against the pale sky. His expression was unreadable. his body tense with command. Yet his hand caught her arm in a grip both protective and possessive. "You stay with me," he said, voice like iron. Her instinct screamed to pull away, to insist she wasn't his property. But the sight of wolves gathering, snarling, bristling, ready for blood, stole her voice. She nodded once. The rival pack descended like a storm. Dark shapes surged from the tree-line, eyes glowing with hatred, fangs bared. The alpha's wolves roared back, shifting mid-stride into beasts of muscle and claw. Amara had never seen violence like it. The clash was deafening. The crunch of bone, the tearing of flesh, the guttural cries of men who were not fully men. She wanted to look away, but she couldn't. And in the center of it all was him. The alpha moved like death incarnate. Every strike was precise, every blow decisive. He wasn't just fighting. He was dominating, bending the battle to his will. And yet, even in the chaos, his gaze kept flicking to her, making sure she hadn't fled, hadn't fallen. It was in that moment that something snapped inside her. When one rival wolf broke past the defensive line, lunging for her throat, Amara didn't freeze. She didn't scream. She grabbed a jagged branch from the ground and drove it forward with every ounce of desperation. The wood splintered, blood sprayed, and the beast fell, twitching at her feet. The alpha's eyes locked on hers across the battlefield, glowing with something primal. Not just approval, possession. She had killed to survive, and in doing so, she had crossed into his world. When the last enemy fled and silence fell, Amara's knees shook. She was drenched in blood, none of it hers, and her chest heaved with disbelief at what she had done. The alpha strode toward her, his bare chest streaked with gore, his breathing steady despite the battle. He didn't ask if she was hurt. He didn't comfort her. He simply lifted her chin with one bloodied hand, forcing her to meet his gaze. "You see now," he said, voice hoarse but commanding. "You're part of this. You can't return to who you were. Not after this." Amara trembled, anger and fear rising in equal measure. "I didn't choose this." "No," he admitted, eyes burning into hers. "But you belong to it now. You belong to me." Her breath caught. She should have denied it, should have spat in his face. But instead, the heat in her chest betrayed her. The memory of killing, the rush of adrenaline, the way his eyes devoured her. It all tangled into a forbidden truth she couldn't swallow. "You're insane," she whispered, though her body betrayed her by leaning closer. He pressed his forehead against hers, a dangerous intimacy in the blood-soaked silence. "Maybe," he murmured. "But you feel it too. Bon. Pull. You want to fight it, but it's already inside you." Amara's heart pounded, a furious rhythm against his hand still resting over it. She hated him. She feared him. She wanted him. And when his lips brushed hers, rough, claiming, unapologetic, she didn't pull away. For one breathless, damning moment she kissed him back. Chapter 6: Betrayal. The morning after the battle, the valley smelled of smoke and iron. Wolves were burning their dead. Ash drifted through the air, a grim snowfall that settled on Amara's skin like a curse. She sat on a stone near the river, scrubbing at the dried blood on her hands. No matter how hard she rubbed, the stains wouldn't fade. She could still feel the weight of the branch in her grip, the crunch of bone when she drove it home. Her stomach churned. She had killed. She, Amara, the girl who once cried when stepping on a bird's nest by accident, had murdered a creature with her own hands. She wasn't alone for long. "You fight like a wolf already," a voice sneered. Amara turned to see a woman standing in the shadows of the trees, tall and sharp-eyed. Unlike the others, she wasn't dressed in rags or bloodied hides. Her tunic was clean, her braid perfect. She carried herself with arrogance, like she was above the chaos. "I'm not a wolf," Amara said, voice unsteady. The woman smiled without warmth. "No, you're worse. You're human. And yet, somehow, you've crawled into the alpha's bed." Heat flared in Amara's cheeks. "That's not true." "Don't lie," the woman cut in, stepping closer, her voice dripping venom. I saw it. Last night. His lips on yours. His hands on you. You think you're special. You think he loves you. She laughed, cruel and cutting. You're a plaything, human. He'll tire of you like he tires of everything else. Amara's breath caught, shame warring with anger. She wanted to deny it, wanted to scream, but before she could, the woman leaned in and whispered, "Do you want to know the truth? The Alpha didn't rescue you. He claimed you. He let rogues chase you into his territory because he wanted to see if you were strong enough to survive. You're not his victim. You're his experiment." The words were poison, seeping into Amara's mind. Her body froze, heart slamming against her ribs. Could it be true? The woman stepped back, eyes glinting. "Think on that, little human. And when you're ready to turn against him, come find me." She melted into the forest before Amara could respond. By nightfall, the pack gathered in the square for judgment. 2 wolves were dragged forward, bloody, beaten but alive. They were accused of betraying the pack, leaking information to the rival clan. The Alpha stood tall before them, shirtless, scars glowing under the torchlight. His voice was low but lethal. "You broke loyalty. You endangered us all." Amara stood at the edge of the circle, trembling as she watched. The traitors begged for mercy, swearing they were innocent, but the Alpha didn't waver. With a gesture, he signaled his enforcers. They tore into the men's throats, ripping them apart as the pack howled approval. Amara gasped, covering her mouth. She had never seen such raw, public brutality. And then, horrifyingly, his eyes turned to her. He crossed the blood-stained ground and stopped inches from her, his hand curling around her jaw. His grip was firm, his gaze merciless. "You see what betrayal brings," he said softly, so only she could hear. "You saw it with your own eyes. You felt it when you killed that wolf yesterday. There's no room for weakness here. If you turn against me, if you even think of siding with another, this is your fate too." Amara's pulse thundered. She tried to breathe, but his words were a chain, tightening around her neck. And yet, deep inside, the seed of doubt that woman had planted began to sprout. What if he had orchestrated everything? What if her rescue wasn't salvation, but manipulation? She wanted to hate him. She wanted to pull away. But his touch lingered like fire, and his warning felt less like a threat and more like a prophecy. Later, alone in her quarters, Amara stared into the darkness, torn between 2 truths. 1. The Alpha had claimed her in blood and fire, making her feel more alive than she ever had. 2. She might be nothing more than his pawn. And she couldn't decide which truth was worse. Chapter 7, Passion and Power. The Alpha summoned her to his chambers that night. Amara stood at the heavy wooden door, her palm flat against the scarred surface. She could hear movement inside. Boots against stone, the clink of steel, the quiet growl of a man caged within himself. She should have turned back. Every instinct screamed that stepping into his space was surrender. Yet her body betrayed her, pulling her forward like a moth diving headlong into fire. The door creaked open, and there he was, bare-chested, his skin glistening with sweat, a dagger in hand. He had been sharpening it, though from the look in his eyes, the blade wasn't the sharpest weapon in the room. "You came," he murmured. Amara swallowed hard. "You ordered me." His lips curved, not into a smile but into something hungrier. "And yet you could have refused." He set the dagger down, the sound ringing like a warning in the silence. Then, in 3 long strides, he was before her. His hand brushed her cheek, rough but careful, as if testing whether she would flinch. Amara's breath shuddered out. Her body screamed at her to step back, but she stood her ground. She hated herself for it. "You fear me," he whispered, his nose brushing against her temple. "But you crave me too." Her heart slammed so hard she thought it might break free from her chest. "That's not true. Liar." His voice was soft, but it rumbled through her bones. His hand slid down her throat, pausing over the rapid beat of her pulse. "Your body tells me everything. Your scent betrays you more than your words ever will. Heat flooded her cheeks. Anger flared, sharp and humiliating. You think you know me. You think because you're alpha, you can read my every thought. His eyes burned, dark and unyielding. Not your thoughts, your soul. It beats against mine like a caged wolf. And it wants freedom as much as it wants me. Her knees wobbled. She hated that his words cut straight to the marrow of her truth. She did want freedom. And she wanted him. Both truths warred inside her, tearing her apart. Why me? She demanded, pushing against his chest. Her hands landed on hot muscle, and she cursed the way her body thrilled at the contact. You could have any wolf. Ni Luna. Why risk everything for a human? For the first time his mask cracked. A shadow crossed his face, raw and vulnerable. Because the moon made a mistake once, he said hoarsely. It gave me a mate who betrayed me. I swore never to take another. But then you came. Broken, wild, defiant. And I knew. I would burn my pack to the ground before letting you slip through my fingers. The confession stole the air from the room. Amara's throat tightened. She wanted to recoil, but his desperation clawed at her like a plea. You don't own me, she whispered. His lips brushed her ear, a promise and a threat all at once. No. But I will. And then his mouth crushed against hers. It wasn't tender. It wasn't careful. It was fire meeting storm. Furious, consuming, endless. Amara gasped against him, torn between pushing him away and pulling him closer. His hands gripped her waist, pinning her in place, and the world spun away until there was only heat, teeth, and the terrifying truth that part of her wanted to be devoured. She broke the kiss, panting, her lips swollen. You're dangerous, she rasped. So are you, he growled, pressing his forehead to hers. The chamber pulsed with tension, each breath thick with unspoken war. Amara felt her world shatter. She should hate him. She should resist. And yet she ached for more. Chapter 8: Secrets in the Dark. The fire in the Alpha's chamber had burned down to embers by the time Amara slipped away. Her lips still tingled from his kiss. Her heart still pounded with confusion and want. She told herself she would not return. She told herself she would fight him, resist him, prove she was no one's possession. But the truth was harder to face. Part of her was already his. Unable to sleep, she wandered the packhouse corridors. Torches flickered against stone walls, shadows bending and stretching like restless spirits. She should have turned back, but something drove her deeper, past doors she had never opened before. At the end of a narrow passage, she found it. An old wooden door, cracked with age. Curiosity tugged her hand forward. She pushed it open. The room beyond was different. Dust hung thick in the air. Moonlight spilled across tattered curtains and a bed that looked untouched for years. A scent lingered, faint, feminine, wolf and roses. Her pulse quickened. This was no ordinary room. This was someone's memory, preserved like a shrine. A voice cut through the silence. You shouldn't be here. Amara whirled around. A young woman stood in the doorway, the same one who had confronted her by the river. Her eyes glittered with cruel satisfaction. What is this place? Amara demanded, though her voice shook. The woman stepped inside, brushing her fingers across the dusty sheets. This was Luna Celine's chamber. The Alpha's true mate. The one who betrayed him. The name fell like a stone into Amara's chest. Betrayed him. How? The woman's lips curled. By choosing another. By carrying another wolf's child. By driving him to madness. Her gaze flicked sharply toward Amara. And do you know how she died? Amara shook her head. She didn't die, the woman whispered, her smile sharp as glass. She disappeared. Vanished into the night. Some say he killed her. Others say she fled from his cruelty. Either way, he's never spoken of her. Not once. Until now, when you came along. Amara's knees weakened. Her chest tightened. She remembered his words, his confession. The moon made a mistake once. It gave me a mate who betrayed me. But he hadn't told her this. The woman leaned close, her breath hot against Amara's ear. You think you're different. You think you're chosen. You're nothing but a replacement. A ghost he's trying to cage in flesh. And when you fail him, as all humans do, your blood will stain this very floor. Amara staggered back, her throat dry, her mind spinning. You're lying. Am I? The woman tilted her head, eyes glinting. Look around. Everything here is untouched. He couldn't let her go. He won't let you go either. Not until you destroy him, or he destroys you. Before Amara could answer, the woman slipped into the hall and vanished, leaving only her poison behind. Amara stood frozen in the chamber of a ghost, surrounded by the scent of roses and the heavy weight of secrets. For the first time, she wondered if she had fallen not into passion, but into a nightmare spun by the Alpha himself. Chapter 9, The Ghost of Celine. Amara didn't sleep. She couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the untouched chamber, smelled the roses, heard the woman's cruel whisper, "You're just a replacement." By dawn she had made her choice. She would confront him. She would demand the truth, even if it burned her alive. The Alpha was waiting for her in the training yard, bare skin slick with sweat, muscles straining as he sparred with 3 warriors at once. His movements were brutal, precise, almost beautiful in their violence. When he noticed her, the others fell back immediately. No one defied the unspoken rule. When she appeared, his attention belonged to her alone. Couldn't sleep. His tone was casual, but his gaze cut sharp. "No," Amara said, her voice low but firm. "I found a room." He stilled the air shifting. "What room?" "You know which." She crossed her arms, trying to steady her shaking hands. "Celine's." For a heartbeat. His expression was unreadable. Then his jaw tightened, and his eyes burned with something between fury and grief. "You had no right to enter there," he growled. "I had every right," Amara snapped back. "You talk about fate and bonds and destiny, but you keep secrets like chains around your neck. Who was she to you? And what happened to her?" The pack around them shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to listen, but the tension in the yard was electric. Wolves weren't used to hearing anyone speak to their alpha this way, and live. He dismissed the warriors with a wave of his hand. When they were alone, he turned on Amara, his chest heaving. "Celine was my mate. Iluna. My ruin." The words struck like claws. Amara held her breath. "She betrayed me," he continued, voice raw. "She took another to her bed, carried another's pup. And when I discovered the truth, she vanished into the night. Some say I killed her. Others say she fled. The truth doesn't matter. What matters is this: she left me broken." Amara's throat tightened. "And now you've chosen me. To replace her." "No," he stepped closer, eyes blazing. "Not to replace. To erase." Her heart stuttered. "Erase." His hand shot out, gripping her wrist, pulling her against him. "You think I don't know what they whisper? That I chose you because you resemble her? That you're a shadow of what I lost? They're wrong." His voice dropped to a growl. "You are not her. You are mine. And I will prove it until you can no longer doubt." Amara trembled, torn between fear and the terrifying pull of his conviction. "But what if she comes back?" she whispered, her voice breaking. For the first time, his face cracked with something like panic. His grip on her loosened. "She won't," he said, but the certainty was gone from his voice. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with all the things neither dared to admit. That Celine's ghost wasn't gone, that love born from ruin might never heal, and that Amara's heart was shackled to a man who might always belong to another. Chapter 10, Blood Oath. Storm clouds swirled over the packhouse that night, heavy and electric. The moon was hidden, the air thick with a tension Amara could almost taste. She had been summoned again. But this time it wasn't to his chambers. It was to the Hall of Blood, the sacred place where oaths were bound, where wolf and magic intertwined. She had never been there before, but the stories were enough. No one left unchanged. The hall was cavernous, its stone walls etched with ancient runes that pulsed faintly with red light. At its center stood the Alpha, shirtless, scarred, a silver knife in his hand. A chalice sat at his feet, brimming with something dark and shimmering like liquid shadow. "You came," he said softly, but his voice echoed like thunder. "I didn't have a choice." Amara's pulse raced. "What is this?" His eyes burned. "A blood oath. Between us. Between you and the pack. You want answers. You want freedom. This is how you get them. This is how you prove you're not her." Amara froze. "A blood oath?" "Yes." He stepped closer, the knife glinting. "You drink from me. I drink from you. Our bond is sealed before the ancestors. After that, no one, not Celine, not the council, not even the moon itself, can tear us apart." Her stomach turned. "You're asking me to give up my freedom. I'm asking you to claim your place," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You saved my life in battle. You stood your ground against rogues. You've already begun the bond whether you want it or not. This only finishes what fate started." Amara's hands curled into fists. "And if I say no?" For a heartbeat, he looked almost human, almost wounded. Then the mask slid back into place. "Then you walk away. You leave the pack. You leave me. But you will never come back. Not alive." The words hit like a blade. He wasn't just offering a choice. He was threatening her life. She swallowed hard. "Why now?" "Because the council has begun to move against me," he growled. "They whisper about Celine. They whisper about you. They want you gone. This oath will silence them forever." The storm outside cracked with thunder. Lightning flashed across his face, painting him in light and shadow. Amara's heart pounded. She remembered the river, the fight, the first night he had carried her into his world. She remembered his confession, his kiss, his warning. And she remembered the woman's words. "You're just a replacement." Was this love? Or a cage built from blood? He held out the knife, the edge gleaming between them. "Choose." Amara stared at it. The hall seemed to close in, the runes pulsing faster, the chalice trembling as if alive. If she refused, she would lose everything: the protection, the bond, the chance to know the truth. If she accepted, she might lose herself entirely. Her voice came out a whisper. "Show me your arm." The Alpha's eyes flickered with surprise. Then, slowly, he drew the blade across his palm. Blood welled up, dark and rich, glowing faintly as it dripped into the chalice. Amara's hand shook. She took the knife. The steel felt heavier than any weapon she'd ever held. She drew it across her own palm, hissing as pain flared and blood bloomed. Their blood mingled in the chalice. The runes on the walls blazed bright red. The air thickened, humming with power. The Alpha lifted the chalice to his lips and drank. Then he held it out to her. Amara hesitated only a heartbeat before she took it. The taste of blood and shadow burned her throat like fire, and for a moment she thought she might collapse. When it passed her lips, the room shuddered. The runes flared white. The storm outside broke. And in that instant she felt it. His heartbeat slamming into hers, his power flooding her veins, his voice whispering in her mind, "Mine." Amara gasped, dropping the chalice. The bond was real, live, inescapable. The Alpha caught her before she fell. His grip strong, his eyes blazing. "Now you're not Celine," he said. "Now you're Amara. Iluna. My power. My blood." Amara stared up at him, trembling. Not with fear, but with the terrifying certainty that she had just sealed her fate. Chapter 11. The Rebellion. The pack house was restless. Amara could feel it in the way eyes followed her down the halls, in the way conversations fell silent when she passed. The blood oath had silenced whispers, but only on the surface. Beneath, rebellion simmered. At breakfast, wolves shifted uneasily at long tables, glancing from her to the Alpha like waiting for the spark to ignite a fire. When the Alpha entered, the air shifted instantly. Wolves lowered their heads. But their submission was hollow, brittle, too sharp to be loyalty. Amara's gut twisted. The oath hadn't solved anything. It had only made her more hated. That night it broke. A howl split the air, ragged and furious. Amara ran to the courtyard, the Alpha at her side. The council stood waiting. 7 elders, gray-haired but unbowed, flanked by warriors with blades gleaming. "You've gone too far," the eldest said, his voice carrying. "Binding a human with blood. Desecrating the old ways. You've cursed us all." "She's not a curse," the Alpha growled, his power thrumming in the air. "She's my Luna." "Your Luna was Celine," another counselor spat. "This one is nothing but flesh in your bed, a replacement for your shame. We won't follow her. And we won't follow you." The words hit Amara like claws. She saw the ripple through the crowd, wolves nodding, muttering, some even stepping back from their Alpha. The Alpha bared his teeth. "You would defy me. We would free ourselves," the eldest declared. He raised his hand. At once, warriors surged forward. The courtyard erupted into chaos. Steel clashed against claws. Wolves shifted mid-strike, fur exploding through skin. The night filled with snarls and screams. Amara stumbled back, heart racing. Her instincts screamed to hide, to run, but the bond inside her pulsed, his heartbeat hammering against hers. The Alpha was fighting, bleeding, his fury tearing through the rebellion like a storm. Then she saw it. A warrior broke through the chaos, eyes locked on her. Not on the Alpha. Not on the throne. Her. Before she could react, he lunged. Time slowed. Amara's body moved before her mind. She grabbed a fallen blade, raising it clumsily. But before she could strike, her palm flared with light, the mark of the blood oath searing alive. The warrior froze mid-air, eyes wide, body convulsing as if invisible chains bound him. His scream tore through the courtyard before he collapsed, unmoving. Amara's chest heaved. Her hand trembled. She hadn't killed him. The bond had. Gasps rippled through the courtyard. Every wolf had seen it, the human wielding power not her own. The Alpha's power. And then his voice crashed over the din, a roar that silenced even the rebels. "You see, she is mine. She is Luna by blood, by oath, by the moon itself. Defy her, and you defy me." The rebels hesitated, snarling, but their momentum faltered. The Alpha struck, his claws tearing through the last of the warriors. One by one, the rebellion broke, scattering into the night. When the courtyard was still, Amara stood in the center, blade in hand, breath ragged, her palms still glowing faintly. Wolves stared at her with a mix of awe and terror. The Alpha approached, blood dripping down his arm. His eyes locked on hers. "You see now," he rasped. "You are not powerless. You are not prey. You are bound to me, and that makes you feared." Amara stared at him, chest heaving. She had wanted freedom. She had wanted truth. But instead she had been given power. And in the silence that followed, she wondered if power would kill her faster than love ever could. Chapter 12. The Enemy Within. The courtyard still smelled of blood and smoke when dawn crept over the trees. Wolves moved like shadows, dragging bodies, tending wounds, whispering with voices pitched too low for her to hear. Amara stood at the balcony above, the weight of the night pressing into her bones. The Alpha hadn't slept. She could see it in the way his shoulders carried tension like iron bars, in the raw edge of his voice as he barked orders. The rebellion was broken, but not destroyed. Rebels had escaped into the forest, their loyalty still alive. But worse, the fear that spread now wasn't of the Alpha. It was of her. Wherever she walked, eyes followed. Wolves stepped aside as though she carried a disease. Even children who had once smiled at her shrank back, hiding in their mother's skirts. The memory of the glowing mark seared her palm. She hadn't meant to kill that warrior. She hadn't wanted to. But she had. And the pack had seen it. That night, she found the Alpha in his chamber, pacing like a caged beast. "They'll never accept me," she said quietly. "They don't need to," he snapped, turning on her. His eyes burned, feral and wild. They only need to fear you. Her stomach twisted. Fear is not loyalty. Fear breaks. It turns to hate. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then he closed the distance, his hands gripping her face, rough and desperate. I can't lose you. Do you understand? If they won't love you, then let them hate you. Let them bow out of fear. You're mine, Amara. And nothing, not rebels, not councils, not fate itself, will take you from me. His lips crashed against hers, all hunger and fire, claiming rather than asking. She melted into him, torn between fury and need, between wanting to fight him and wanting to be consumed. But when he finally pulled back, his breath ragged, his words chilled her blood. There's a traitor inside these walls. Someone close. That rebellion last night didn't happen without a whisper from here. Her heart stopped. Who? His eyes narrowed. I don't know yet. But I will find them. And when I do, they'll beg for mercy. The truth came faster than she expected. 2 nights later, she caught movement near the council chamber, shadows slipping where none should be. She followed silently, her bare feet making no sound on stone. The figure stopped at a hidden door, slipping inside. Amara's blood ran cold. She recognized that gait, that lean build. It was Kalen the beta, the alpha's right hand. The wolf who had once stood between her and threats, who had offered quiet words when the alpha's presence grew too heavy. Inside the chamber, she pressed herself to the door, listening. His voice carried low but sharp. Yes, the rebellion failed. But the pack still stirs. The council is broken, the alpha distracted by his human. Strike now and you can finish this. He won't see it coming. Amara's pulse thundered. Her throat went dry. Kalen, the wolf the alpha trusted most, was the one feeding the rebellion. And worse, Kalen wasn't speaking to a stranger. He was speaking to someone she knew. You promised me, Kalen hissed. You swore she'd never matter. You swore she'd be nothing more than a distraction. The reply came, muffled but clear enough. A woman's voice. Celine's sister. The dead mate's bloodline. Amara staggered back from the door, her chest tight. Betrayal coiled in every shadow, every breath. The rebellion hadn't ended. It had only shifted closer. She returned to the alpha's chamber, but when she looked at him, worn, furious, dangerous, her tongue froze. If she told him now, he would slaughter Kalen without hesitation. He would tear the sister apart. And maybe that was justice. Maybe that was survival. But in her gut she knew, if he killed Kalen, the last of his trust would die too. If he destroyed Celine's bloodline, the whispers of curse and blasphemy would never end. The pack wouldn't just fear him, they would hate him. And hate would breed more rebellion. Amara stood in the silence of his chamber, torn between 2 choices. Expose Kalen, and watch the alpha kill his brother in arms. Stay silent, and carry the burden of betrayal alone. For the first time, she realized the blood oath had given her more than power. It had given her a choice dangerous enough to shatter them both. Chapter 13, The Luna's Choice. The moon hung swollen over the packhouse, silver light dripping across the courtyard like spilled wine. Amara stood at the balcony, her palms pressed to the cold stone, her chest a battlefield of silence. Kalen's voice still echoed in her skull. You promised me. She'd never matter. She's only a distraction. The alpha prowled below, his wolf close to the surface, every movement raw with violence. He knew betrayal was near. He could smell it, taste it, but not from whom. And she carried the truth like a blade hidden beneath her ribs. That night, he came to her room, pacing like a storm given flesh. Someone is poisoning my house, he growled. I can feel it. I've ruled through war, through famine, through blood. But this. He slammed his hand against the wall, making the wood shudder. This eats us from the inside. Amara's throat tightened. She could speak. She could name Kalen, name Celine's sister, unravel the plot before it strangled them both. Instead, she said, "What will you do when you find them?" His eyes burned like coals. What I always do. Rip the rot out. Burn it until nothing is left. Her stomach twisted. His answer wasn't justice. It was vengeance. And in that moment she realized, if she told him, Kaelin's blood would be spilled before dawn. Celine's sister would hang as a traitor. And the pack, the broken, fearful, suspicious pack, would see their alpha's wrath not as protection, but as proof of tyranny. The rebellion would never die. Amara stepped closer, her voice a whisper. And if the rot is someone you love? His body stilled. For a heartbeat, his expression cracked. The wolf behind his eyes faltered, pain flashing through. Then his jaw clenched like iron. Then love is a weakness. And weakness must die. The words pierced her deeper than claws. That night, when the pack gathered, Amara made her choice. The council chamber was heavy with smoke. Wolves pressed shoulder to shoulder, whispers darting like knives. The alpha stood at the center, a beast made flesh, fury in every line of him. "We have a traitor among us," he declared. His voice shook the walls. "Someone who feeds our enemies. Tonight I will find them. And I will end them." Every gaze turned to her. Amara felt their weight, their suspicion, their hate. She stepped forward, her heartbeat thunder in her ears. The mark on her palm blazed faintly, as though the blood oath itself urged her on. "I know who it is." A ripple tore through the chamber. The alpha's head snapped toward her, his eyes wild. "Who?" Amara swallowed. Every path before her led to ruin. Betray Kaelin, and she would damn the alpha's last bond of trust. Betray Celine's sister, and she would fuel the curse that already haunted her name. Stay silent, and the rebellion would devour them whole. So she chose the only path left. She lied. "The traitor," she said, her voice steady, "is not Kaelin. It is not Celine's bloodline. It is me." The chamber erupted in gasps, growls, snarls. Wolves surged forward, teeth bared. Kaelin's face went white. Celine's sister stiffened in the shadows. The alpha's voice cut through the chaos like thunder. "Silence!" The pack stilled. His gaze locked on her, disbelief etched into every line of his face. "You dare say that?" Her knees trembled, but she lifted her chin. "Who else has brought death to your warriors? Who else carries strange power? Who else turned your people's fear into rebellion? Me. I am the poison. If you must burn someone, burn me." The pack erupted again, some crying for blood, others stunned into silence. But the alpha, he didn't move. His wolf prowled beneath his skin, torn between fury and devastation. "Amara." His voice broke, the first crack she had ever heard in him. "Do you think I would kill you?" Her throat tightened. "If you don't, they will." The chamber surged. Wolves pressed forward. And for the first time in his reign, the alpha looked powerless. Then he roared, louder than thunder, louder than war. "No one touches her." His body shifted, wolf ripping through skin and bone, a beast of smoke and silver. He stood between her and the pack, daring them to defy him. Kaelin's voice rose above the chaos. "He protects her, even now. Even when she admits betrayal. Tell me this isn't weakness. Tell me this isn't madness." And in that moment, Amara knew the war had truly begun. Not between packs. Not between rebels and rulers. But between the alpha's love for her and the pack's hate of what she represented. Chapter 14: Fire and Blood. The pack house had never felt so fragile. The air was thick with smoke, with snarls, with the restless shuffle of claws on stone. Wolves argued in corners, voices sharp with rage. Some demanded Amara's death, others whispered doubts about Kaelin, and all the while the alpha stood like a storm ready to break. He had chosen her, not the pack, not tradition, and the pack knew it. By dawn, rebellion no longer hid in the shadows. Wolves marched openly against their alpha, Kaelin at their head. His voice thundered across the courtyard. "This is not strength. This is obsession." He would throw away our bloodline, our laws, our future, for her. Celine's sister stood at his side. Her presence a wound the Alpha refused to acknowledge. The Alpha's wolf prowled beneath his skin, eyes bright with fury. He faced Kaelin not as a friend, not as a brother in arms, but as an enemy. "Do you think I won't kill you for this?" His voice rumbled like earth splitting. Kaelin bared his throat, not in submission but in defiance. "You already have. You killed the pack the moment you made her queen." The wolves howled. The courtyard split into factions, claws flashing, teeth bared. Rebellion tore through stone and blood alike, brother turning against brother, mate against mate. Amara fought too, though she had never been trained. The mark burned in her palm, power spilling through her veins like fire. Every time she struck, wolves fell, not dead but broken, pinned by a force they couldn't fight. And with every strike, their fear grew. They didn't see her as Luna. They saw her as monster. By nightfall, the courtyard was slick with blood. Bodies lay scattered. Wolves limped away, tails low, eyes filled with hate. The rebellion hadn't won, but neither had the Alpha. They had all lost. Chapter 15: The Last Bond. The packhouse was silent, empty halls echoing like tombs. The survivors tended wounds in secret, too afraid to gather, too divided to trust. The Alpha sat alone on the throne, blood drying on his hands, his eyes hollow. Amara approached slowly, her steps soft against the stone. "You chose me over them," she whispered. His gaze lifted, fire still simmering. "I would choose you over the world." Her heart twisted. She wanted to believe him. But the silence outside these walls told her the cost. "They will never forgive me," she said. "Not after this. Not after the blood I've spilled." "They don't need to," he rasped. He reached for her hand, pressing his palm to the mark etched into her skin. "This is all that matters." But Amara pulled back. "No, this is not love anymore. This is war. And if you can't see that, then we are already lost." His jaw clenched. "So what do you want? To run? To hide? To leave me here while the pack tears itself apart?" Her chest ached. Tears burned her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I want a choice. I want to be more than the curse they say I am." For the first time he had no answer. His silence was heavier than any threat, any roar. Amara turned toward the door, her voice low. "If you truly love me, you'll let me walk away. Because if I stay, they will never follow you again." The Alpha rose, every muscle trembling, as if he were holding back the shift that clawed beneath his skin. For a heartbeat, she thought he would stop her, drag her back, mark her, bind her forever. But instead he whispered, raw and broken, "Go. And take my heart with you." She stepped into the night, the forest swallowing her whole. Behind her the pack howled, not in unity but in grief and rage. And for the first time since fate had bound them, Amara was free.